Picture this. It's a Tuesday afternoon. You finally have a quiet weekend on the calendar. Maybe you had plans to meet a friend, tend your garden, or just breathe for once. Then the phone rings. It's your daughter. She has a work thing on Saturday. Could you watch the grandkids? Just this once? And before she even finishes the sentence, you hear yourself say it. Of course, honey, no problem. You hang up the phone. The plans are gone. And somewhere inside you, something small and tired just sighs. Sound familiar? Here's the question I want to ask you today. When did yes become the only word you're allowed to say? I've worked as a psychologist, sitting with seniors, listening to their stories, their exhaustion, and their quiet, unspoken wish to simply be heard and respected in their own families. And I'm here to tell you something important. There are moments in your life, right now, at this stage, when saying no to your adult children is not selfish. It is the most loving, self-respecting, and relationship-preserving thing you can possibly do. Today, I'm going to walk you through 5 specific situations where that is absolutely true. And I'm going to give you the actual words, kind, confident, and clear, to say it. Stay with me. This one matters. Before we get into the 5 situations, I want to spend a moment on something important. Why is it so hard for seniors to say no to their adult children in the first place? Because it's not weakness. It's psychology. Over the course of a lifetime, most of us, especially those of you who are parents, have built your entire identity around being the one who gives, the one who shows up, the one who holds things together. For decades, good parent meant being available, sacrificing, saying yes. And now your children are grown. But the habit didn't leave with them. There's also something else at work. Many seniors I've spoken with over the years carry a quiet, persistent fear, the fear of being seen as difficult, or demanding, or a burden. So they say yes to keep the peace. They swallow the number. They tell themselves, it's fine. It's just this once. But here's what the research tells us, and what 40 years of sitting across from real families has confirmed for me personally. When you consistently override your own needs to please your adult children, 2 things happen. First, you slowly erode your own sense of self-worth and autonomy. Studies on aging consistently show that loss of personal control is one of the single greatest predictors of depression and decline in older adults. And second, and this is the painful irony, the less you push back, the less they respect you. Not because your children are bad people. They're not. But because human beings, all of us, unconsciously take for granted what we are never asked to consider. Boundaries are not walls. They are not acts of rejection. Boundaries are bridges to honest, mutual respect. And right now, I want to help you build some. Here are the 5 times you should say no, and gain more respect for it. Let me describe a woman I'll call Margaret. She was 68, recently retired, and finally, had the home she'd dreamed of. A quiet Tuesday morning with her coffee. A spare room she'd turned into a reading space. A weekend that belonged to her. Within 6 months of retirement, the spare room was full of her son's boxes from his last move. The grandkids were dropped off most Friday afternoons, sometimes without so much as a text. And her daughter had a key and used it whenever she needed something. Margaret wasn't unhappy about any one of these things. But together, she told me she felt like a guest in her own home. Does any of this sound familiar? Here's what I want you to understand about your home at this stage of life. After 60, after decades of raising children, running households, making space for everyone else, your home is no longer a community resource. It is your sanctuary. It is the physical expression of who you are and the life you've built. When adult children treat it as available on demand, whether that's your garage, your calendar, your kitchen, or your energy, they are, whether they mean to be or not, communicating that your space and your time are less valuable than their convenience. And when you silently allow it, you confirm that message. Now, I'm not suggesting you become a fortress. Of course you love your grandchildren. Of course you want to help. But there is a profound difference between choosing to help and being assumed to be available. Here's the shift in psychology. Choice is empowering. Assumption is diminishing. So what do you say? When the call comes and you're being asked or told that the grandkids are coming over on Saturday, try this. I love spending time with them, but I need some notice. My weekends matter to me too. Can we find a time that works for both of us? That's it. No lengthy explanation. No apology. No guilt spiral. And if someone shows up unannounced, you are allowed to say, warmly and without drama, I wasn't expecting company today. Let's plan something soon. The first time you say this, it may feel enormous. Your heart may race. They may seem surprised. But what I have seen, time and time again, in my practice and in real families, is this. Within weeks, the dynamic shifts. You get more notice. You get more consideration. And quietly, without anyone announcing it, you get more respect. Because you made one thing clear. Your home is yours. And that matters. Remember this. A home you control is a life you control. This one is more subtle. And in some ways, it's more dangerous. Because it often arrives dressed up as concern. Mom, have you thought about a smaller place? Stairs aren't great at your age. Dad, I made you an appointment with Dr. So-and-so. I think you need a second opinion. We were talking, and we really think you should let us handle your finances, just to make it easier on you. Now, sometimes, these conversations are completely appropriate. There are real moments when adult children need to step in, and when accepting help is wise and loving. But I'm not talking about those moments. I'm talking about the pattern. The gradual, well-meaning erosion of your decision-making authority over your own life. The gentle but persistent message that you are no longer fully qualified to run your own affairs. In psychology, we call the need to direct your own life autonomy. And the research is unambiguous. Seniors who maintain a strong sense of personal autonomy are healthier, happier, sharper, and live longer than those who relinquish it, even when the relinquishing is voluntary. The psychologists D.C. and Ryan, whose work on self-determination theory spans decades, were clear. Autonomy is not a luxury. It is a fundamental human need that does not expire at 60, 70, or 80. So when your adult children begin making decisions for you, rather than with you, especially about your home, your health care, your money, or your daily life, something important is being taken from you. And I want to be precise about this. It is often unintentional. Your children love you. They worry. That worry can tip, almost invisibly, into control. Your job is to notice it, and to gently, firmly, redirect it. Here's what to say when you feel that line being crossed. I hear your concern, and I appreciate it. I really do, but this is my decision to make. When I'm ready to make it, I will, and if I want your input, I promise I'll ask. Say it calmly. Say it once. And then mean it. You may need to repeat a version of this several times before the new boundary is understood. That's okay. Patience and consistency are your greatest tools here. But know this. Every time you stand firm on your right to make your own choices, you are sending a message about who you are. You are a capable, experienced, fully formed adult, not a project to be managed. And the children who love you? Deep down, they need to see you that way too. Remember this. The moment you stop deciding, others will start deciding for you. Permanently. I'm going to be direct with you on this one, because I believe you deserve directness. This is, hands down, the single most common and most damaging pattern I have seen in families where seniors are struggling. Not from illness, not from loneliness, but from financial anxiety that was entirely preventable. It usually starts small. A loan for a car repair. Helping out with a month's rent during a hard stretch. A little extra for the grandchildren's school supplies. And you give it. Because you love them. Because you can. Because it feels good to help. But months pass. The loan is never repaid. The next hard stretch comes. and the ask comes with it. I know this is a lot, Mom, but we just need to get through this one more time. Dad, you know I'd pay you back if I could. You're the only one we can turn to. And so you give again. Because how do you say no to that? To your own child? To your grandchildren's well-being? Here's what I need you to hear clearly. There is a profound difference between helping someone through a genuine crisis and repeatedly rescuing someone from the consequences of their own patterns. The first is love. The second is enabling. And enabling, however well-intentioned, does not help. It harms. It removes the natural pressure that motivates growth, change, and responsibility. It teaches your children, and by example your grandchildren, that there is always a safety net, no matter what choices are made. And meanwhile, your retirement savings erode, your financial security shrinks. And the terrible irony is that seniors who give away too much sometimes become financially dependent themselves on the very children they were trying to protect. I have sat with women in their mid-70s who cannot afford their medication because they spent their savings propping up an adult child's lifestyle. That is not love. That is a tragedy. So how do you say no, especially when it is genuinely hard? There are two versions, and you choose based on the situation. If you want to be gentle, I love you, and I'm not in a position to do that right now. Notice, no lengthy explanation. No financial disclosures. No debate. I love you. I can't. Period. If the pattern has been going on long enough that it needs to be named. I have helped before, and I always will if there is a true emergency. But I've realized that helping this way isn't actually helping you. That has to change, for both our sakes. That is hard to say. I know. You may be met with hurt or anger. But consider what you are also modeling. For your grandchildren who are watching. For the adult child who needs, more than anything, to discover their own strength. There is nothing more loving than believing in someone's ability to stand on their own feet, even when they don't believe it themselves yet. Remember this, you can love them deeply and still let them stand on their own. This is the situation that makes my heart ache a little, because it touches on something beautiful. After 60, after the career, after raising children, after all the years of living for others, something remarkable becomes possible. A kind of freedom. A second chance at becoming more fully yourself. Some of you are dating again, perhaps after losing a spouse, perhaps after a long period of putting your own heart on the shelf. Some of you are traveling solo for the first time. Taking a painting class. Starting a YouTube channel. Making new friends who light you up in ways you haven't felt in years. And then someone, often a well-meaning adult child, says, "Are you sure that's a good idea at your age?" Or, "I just don't want you to get hurt." Or the one that cuts deepest, "Mom, don't you think it's a little soon? A little much?" I want to talk about what is really being communicated in those moments. Erik Erikson, one of the most influential psychologists of the 20th century, described the primary psychological task of later life as integrity, the process of looking at your life fully, accepting it, and finding meaning in it. Of choosing to live rather than simply to wait. When adult children, however lovingly, push back against your growth, your relationships, your joy, they are interrupting that process. They are asking you to be smaller so that they can feel more comfortable. And sometimes, I have to say this plainly, their discomfort has nothing to do with you. It is about their own grief around your aging, their own anxiety, their own adjustment to seeing you as a full, evolving person rather than simply as their parent. That is their work to do. Not yours to carry. When someone questions your choices at this stage of life, your friendships, your romance, your passions, your adventures, here is what you say. I know this might be surprising to you, but I've lived long enough to know what makes me feel alive. I need you to trust me on this. I'm not asking for your permission. I'm sharing something that makes me happy. Say it with love. Say it with a smile even. But say it. Because here is what I want you to hold on to after this video ends. You do not need permission to be fully alive after 60. not from your children, not from anyone. This season of your life has the potential to be one of the richest, most genuinely you chapters you have ever lived. Don't let anyone talk you out of it, even someone who loves you. Remember this: you don't need permission to be fully alive after 60. I've saved this one for last because I believe it is the most important. And because it is the one that seniors most often laugh off until they can't. Here is what it looks like in practice. You have a follow-up appointment with your cardiologist on Thursday. Your daughter calls Wednesday night in tears. Her car won't start. She has a work presentation. Could you possibly drive her children to school in the morning? You cancel your appointment. Or you have been managing chronic back pain, and your physical therapist has you doing a specific routine 3 mornings a week. But your son has been going through a hard time and calls most mornings to talk, sometimes for an hour. By the time you hang up, the window for your exercises is gone. You stop doing them. Or you are not sleeping well because you are on call, emotionally, for a child going through a crisis. Their stress has become your stress. Their insomnia, effectively, your insomnia. None of these feel dramatic in isolation. Each one feels like love. But the research on this is absolutely clear, and I want you to hear it seriously. Seniors who consistently deprioritize their own health for the benefit of their adult children experience measurably worse physical and cognitive outcomes. Faster decline, more hospitalization, less independence. Caregiver fatigue and chronic self-neglect in older adults is not a metaphor. It is a medical reality. There is also an emotional pattern worth naming. The phrase, "you're the only one I can count on," is one of the most effective and most damaging things an adult child can say to a senior parent. Because it works. It locks you into a role that is not sustainable and not healthy for either of you. You cannot pour from an empty cup. And at 65, at 72, at 78, your cup refills more slowly than it did at 40. That is not a weakness. That is biology. And it deserves respect, especially your own respect. When you find yourself in this position, here is what to say. I want to be here for you for a long time, years and years. The only way I can do that is if I take care of myself first. That's not me choosing me over you. That's me making sure I'm still standing when you need me. That is the truth. And they need to hear it. Because here is the most important reframe I can offer you today. Taking care of your health is not a selfish act. It is the most generous thing you can do for the people who love you. Staying strong, staying well, staying whole. That is your greatest gift to your family. Remember this. The most loving thing you can do for your family is stay strong, healthy, and here. So let's bring this home. I know that what I've shared today isn't always easy to hear. And I know that putting it into practice, actually saying no to someone you love, someone you raised, someone you would do anything for, is one of the hardest things a person can do. The first time will feel enormous. Your voice might shake. They might be surprised. There might be a moment of awkward silence or a flash of hurt feelings. That is okay. Because here is what I have learned in 40 years of working with families. People respect most what they cannot take for granted. When you show your adult children that your time matters, your decisions matter, your home matters, your health matters, your joy matters, you don't push them away. You give them something far more valuable than compliance. You give them a parent they can genuinely admire. Let me quickly remind you of the 5. Number 1, your home is your sanctuary. Ask for notice. Protect your space. Number 2, your decisions are yours. You will ask for input when you want it. Number 3, your financial security is not their safety net. Love them enough to let them grow. Number 4, your happiness needs no approval. Live fully and unapologetically. Number 5, your health comes first. It is how you stay present for the people you love. I want to close with this. There is something that has stayed with me across decades of clinical work, something I've heard in different words from hundreds of seniors in their 60s, 70s, and 80s who found the courage to finally say no, to finally take up space, to finally live on their own terms. They almost always say some version of the same thing. I just wish I had done this sooner. You have time. Whatever age you are watching this, whatever your family situation looks like right now, you have time. Not to be difficult, not to push people away, but to finally be honest with the people you love and with yourself. That is what strong looks like at this stage of life. Before you go, I want to ask you a question. Leave your answer in the comments below. Which of these 5 situations hit closest to home for you? There is no wrong answer. And I read every single comment. If this video gave you something to think about, please share it with a friend who might need to hear it today. And if you haven't subscribed yet, hit that button now. Next week we're talking about how to recognize when your family is treating you with subtle disrespect without realizing it. That's one you won't want to miss. Until then, stay strong. Stay whole. This is your time.